They whispered behind his back long before he even sat down at the restaurant, but nothing prepared him for the moment he looked up and saw her, and realized the blind date he'd been set up on was never meant to make him happy. It was meant to make him the punchline of a cruel joke. The single dad who worked double shifts, the man who rarely got time to breathe, the one friends claimed needed help finding love, today, he was their entertainment. And the woman walking toward him, clutching her small purse with trembling fingers, had no idea she was part of the setup. If you believe in kindness, dignity, and second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Ripple of Kindness. Your support helps us spread stories that remind the world to be gentle. Jason sat frozen in his chair, his muscles tense, his breath unsteady, his heart dropping when he spotted the group of young men near the window stifling laughter behind their phones. They were filming. Waiting. Anticipating his reaction. They thought he would recoil. They thought he would reject her publicly, maybe angrily, or walk out and leave her standing alone. But what broke him wasn't their mockery, it was the expression on the woman's face. Her eyes carried a familiar story, of being judged before speaking, of feeling unwelcome before entering, of expecting disappointment long before it arrived. She stood at the entrance, shoulders tight, as if preparing to be humiliated. Jason recognized that expression too well. He had worn it himself in the years after his wife died, when people pitied him but never truly helped, when he felt like the world expected him to fail. The moment she stepped forward, unsure and fragile, something inside him shifted. He saw not the woman the boys wanted him to laugh at but a soul trying to be brave in a world that rarely rewarded bravery. Her name was Mia. She walked slowly toward the table, every step heavy with uncertainty, gripping her purse strap so tightly her knuckles paled. She wore a simple blue dress that hugged her body, and though she tried to keep her head high, he could see the fear behind her soft smile. She was expecting rejection. She was prepared for it. It was as if she'd been taught to brace herself for the worst before the world gave her a chance at anything better. Jason took a deep breath and stood up, pulling out her chair before she even reached the table. He saw the boys whispering frantically, confused. Their plan was already falling apart. Mia looked surprised when Jason greeted her with warmth, but that surprise was tinged with hurt. Clearly, this wasn't the first time people had treated her like an inconvenience or a joke. Jason's heart tightened, he knew all too well what it felt like to be judged for things beyond your control. As they sat down, Mia tried to gather her composure. Her voice was soft, careful, as if she was terrified of saying the wrong thing. Jason realized she wasn't just nervous about a blind date, she was nervous about being seen. Being known. Being noticed in a way that wasn't cruel. He spoke gently, asking about her work, her interests, what she liked to do on weekends, and slowly, she began to relax. Her smile appeared for real this time, small, hesitant, but whole. In that moment, Jason saw a spark of a woman who had spent years hiding her light from people who didn't deserve it. As they talked, the boys continued filming, hoping for the moment the funny disaster would happen. But Jason ignored them, focusing only on Mia. He learned she was a kindergarten teacher who adored kids, that she baked on weekends to calm her anxiety, and that she had spent most of her life being told she didn't fit the world's definition of beauty. And yet, Jason couldn't stop noticing the kindness in her voice, the gentleness in her gestures, the way she genuinely listened when he spoke. She carried warmth like other people carried fear, quietly but consistently. For a moment, he forgot where he was. He forgot about the setup. He forgot about the whispers. All he saw was a woman who deserved far more than she had ever received. But when Mia noticed the boys recording, her face fell. Her eyes dimmed. Her shoulders curved inward, protective, ashamed. She looked down at her lap, suddenly small, as if shrinking herself to avoid being seen. Jason felt his hands clench. He saw her bite her lip and whisper that they should end the date early. She didn't want to embarrass him. She didn't want to ruin his reputation. That was the moment Jason's heart cracked open. Something inside him refused to let her feel like she was the one who should apologize for existing. He stood up, his chair scraping loudly across the floor, loud enough for the boys to lift their phones in excitement, thinking the drama was finally beginning. But instead of walking away from Mia, he walked toward them, each step filled with a quiet fire. He didn't shout. He didn't insult them. His voice was steady, controlled, painfully honest. He told them to stop recording, not because he was embarrassed, but because they should be. He told them it took no strength to mock someone, but it took immense courage to show up with a vulnerable heart in a world that tried to break you for sport. He said they should be ashamed for turning kindness into entertainment and insecurity into a spectacle. Then he said words that left the whole restaurant silent. He said Mia deserved respect, not because of how she looked or what society labeled her as, but because she was a human being with a heart big enough to show up even when she expected cruelty. And that made her stronger than all of them combined. The room fell still. The boys lowered their phones. A few nearby diners looked away, embarrassed for ever finding amusement in the scene unfolding. But Mia stared at Jason with tears filling her eyes. Not because she was weak, but because finally, someone had stood for her. Not to defend her body, but to defend her humanity. Jason walked back to the table and sat down quietly, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. But something had shifted, not just in Mia's heart, but in his. For the first time in years, he realized he wasn't alone in his struggles. Courage came in many forms. Hers was showing up despite the world's cruelty. His was choosing kindness despite his pain. The rest of the date felt different. Mia's laughter slowly bloomed, soft but real. Jason talked about his daughter, Lily, and the challenges of raising her alone. Mia listened without pity, offering understanding instead. She shared her own hardships, years of being overlooked, spoken over, and laughed at behind her back. But she also shared dreams, small ones, hopeful ones, about wanting companionship, wanting acceptance, wanting a life where she didn't have to brace herself every time she walked into a room. By the time the date ended, Jason knew he wanted to see her again, not out of pity, not out of obligation, but because she made him feel seen in ways he didn't expect. And when he walked her to her car, he thanked her. Not for the date, but for her bravery. What neither of them realized was that the restaurant manager had turned off the group of boys' phones earlier, confiscating their recordings because filming diners without permission violated policy. The boys were reprimanded and instructed to leave, and the entire time, Jason and Mia had no idea. All Jason had done